After being reborn in the post-apocalypse, the first thing I did was order every most expensive dish at a Michelin 3-star restaurant. 50,000 yuan, and I didn't even blink. The waiter looked at me like I was some rich second-generation heir. But only I knew that in 1 month, money would be nothing but waste paper. In my previous life, I was beaten to death by the neighbors I had helped. They broke my ribs, saying they wanted to make soup. And my former goddess, Fang Yuqing, stood behind the crowd and shouted. I was the one who told him to open the door. You have to give me an extra share of the supplies. So now that I've lived again, I only trust 3 things: stockpiling supplies, weapons, and the strange dimensional space that suddenly appeared in my right eye. After finishing my meal and coming out, I ran into my nemesis on a narrow road. Fang Yuqing and her best friend Lin Caning were waiting outside, pretending to run into me by chance. Zhang Yi, what a coincidence. Fang Yuqing reached up to smooth her hair back, revealing her fair neck and pink earlobes. She'd used this trick for 2.5 years, and every time it made my heart race. But now, I only wanted to see what kind of water was sloshing around in her head. She must have seen me eating at the Michelin 3-star restaurant. She mistook me for a hidden rich second-generation heir, so her green tea radar immediately activated. I couldn't be bothered to waste words and turned to walk toward the supermarket. The two of them stuck to me like taffy. Zhang Yi, where are you going? To the supermarket. What a coincidence. We want to buy some things too. Coincidence, my ass. There's a supermarket right downstairs from your place, and you still had to follow me around 3 blocks? Once inside, I headed straight for the food section. Instant noodles, sausage, canned food, self-heating hot pot. I grabbed whatever I saw. In the apocalypse, these things are hard currency. 1 pack of instant noodles can buy a human life. That's no exaggeration at all. Fang Yuqing stared from behind me in shock. Zhang Yi, why are you buying so much food? Are you going camping? I had them help me push the carts. Free labor is a waste not to use. 3 shopping carts were packed to the brim. I deliberately gave the heaviest cart to Fang Yuqing. Watching her push 400 jean of supplies in Gucci heels, sweat beading on her forehead, and her makeup smeared, was quite a sight. Zhang Yi, what exactly are you buying so much stuff for? I smiled. Disasters can strike without warning. What if the end of the world comes one day? I'd better stock up on more things to get by. Fang Yuqing burst out laughing. Oh, come on. If you don't want to say it, fine, but why make a joke like that? I was telling the truth. It's just that no one believed it. Just like that Dr. Li. He talked himself hoarse, and still no one took him seriously. At checkout, it came to more than 10,000 yuan. Fang Yuqing's eyes lit up again. Zhang Yi, we helped you so much today, so you have to treat us to a meal sometime. Sure, next month. Next month? When you're digging for food in the snow next month, you'll remember this meal. Pushing 3 cartloads of supplies back to the residential complex, I drew stares from the neighbors all along the way. Especially Auntie Lin, who had her grandson Xiaohu with her, her eyes fixed on my carts. Little Zhang, did your warehouse get another batch of discounted goods? You can't use all this up yourselves, so why not share some with the neighbors? Her grandson Xiaohu had already climbed onto the cart, grabbed a box of imported chocolates, and was about to open it. That box of chocolates cost over 200 yuan. I snatched it back. Xiaohu froze for a second, then pointed at my nose and cursed. You bad guy? Give me back the chocolate right now, or I'll beat you to death. The words coming out of a 4-year-old's mouth were filthier than a thug's. I crouched down and stared into his eyes. Say one more word, and I'll slap your mouth. Xiaohu burst into tears and rolled around on the ground, throwing a tantrum. Auntie Lin instantly blew up. You're a grown man. How can you still argue with a child? Isn't it just a box of chocolates? What's wrong with giving it to him? Otherwise, just give it to him and count it as me buying it. I'll pay you back later. Everything's paid by mobile now. Transferring the money takes 3 seconds. Anyone who says they'll pay me back later, every single one of them, is trying to dodge the bill. If you want to eat, go buy it yourself at the supermarket. I turned and left. Behind me came Auntie Lin's cursing, saying I was stingy, ill-mannered, and deserved to be single. I laughed. Go ahead and curse. In my previous life, after the apocalypse arrived, your family was the first in the neighborhood to run out of food. Your son and daughter-in-law were working away from home and couldn't come back, leaving just you and Xiaohu at home. You usually only bought enough groceries for 1 day, and there wasn't even 3 days' worth of extra food in the fridge. In that life, I was soft-hearted. Seeing Xiaohu crying from hunger, I shared some of my food with you. But what happened later? Later, when the neighbors rushed into my home to grab things, you, Auntie Lin, charged in at the very front, stronger than even young men. You struck my head with a rolling pin, shouting for me to hand over the food I'd hidden. And your precious grandson Xiaohu stood by the side, clapping and cheering. In this life, I won't give you even a single cracker. After I got home, I began systematically testing the pocket dimension. The space was absurdly huge, a vast blank whiteness with no visible boundary. Even if I stuffed my living room, bedroom, and kitchen into it all together, it would be like tossing a grain of rice into a swimming pool, without so much as a ripple. But there were limits. It had to be my property, or a completely independent object, to be stored inside. I couldn't pry up a piece of flooring from the ground, but I could pick up and store a whole box of instant noodles. Fresh food could be stored too. Whatever went in came out exactly the same. That meant I didn't have to worry about food spoiling. Perfect. But having supplies alone wasn't enough. In my previous life, I died at home, so this time, before the apocalypse arrived, I had to turn my home into an impregnable fortress. The next day, I invited 3 security companies to come assess the place. The first one took one look at the floor plan and said they could install the highest grade anti-theft door and blast-resistant windows for a total price of $120,000. I showed him out immediately. The second company sent a bald guy, burly all over, who claimed to be a retired Special Forces soldier. He walked around my place once and proposed retrofitting it with bulletproof glass and a military-grade alloy door. Can it withstand dozens of people charging at it? I asked him. The bald guy froze for a moment. Boss, this is a residence, not a bunker. The third person to come was the most interesting. Tall and skinny, wearing glasses, looking like a college professor. His business card said Extreme Environment Security Expert. He spent a full 40 minutes walking around my place, measuring the thickness of every wall, checking the load-bearing structure, and even tapping on the floor to listen to the sound. Then he adjusted his glasses. Mr. Zhang, you said what you want to guard against is, hypothetically, a group of people with fire axes and crowbars are crazily smashing at my door. I need them to be unable to break it open. The man with glasses was silent for a few seconds, then sketched out a draft on his tablet and handed it over. Your unit is an end unit, with 3 exterior walls and 1 interior wall. My plan is this. All windows on the exterior walls will be sealed off and replaced with 30-centimeter thick reinforced concrete walls with military-grade steel plates embedded inside. The entrance door will be replaced with a bank vault-level blast door, B16 blast-resistant standard, capable of withstanding grenades. The door frame will be anchored into the load-bearing columns with expansion bolts to a depth of 50 centimeters. 3 hydraulic locking mechanisms will be installed on the inside of the door. Even if all the hinges are removed from the outside, the door still can't be opened. An additional 5mm steel plate will be added to both the ceiling and the floor to prevent anyone from breaking through from the apartment above or below. All modifications will be completed within 7 days. The cost. He quoted a number. I took a deep breath. Adding up my savings and my parents' inheritance, it was just enough. Signed the contract. The man with glasses pushed up his glasses. Mr. Zhang, may I ask, what exactly are you trying to defend against? The apocalypse. I smiled and told the truth. He smiled too and didn't press further. Professional. On the 7th day of the renovation project, I posted a message in the homeowners group chat. I stocked up on some supplies and planned to work from home for a while. The attached photo was of my storage room, packed full of all kinds of food and drinks. Instant noodles were stacked to the ceiling, and the canned goods were lined up neatly. Self-heating hot pots, compressed biscuits, bottled water, more fully stocked than the neighborhood supermarket. This message was meant for Fang Yuqing and Lin Caning to see. A couple of days ago, I deliberately told them that I'd stocked up on a lot of supplies at home, just in case. The group chat instantly exploded. Zhang Yi, are you opening a convenience store or what? Can you even finish all that food? Is there some inside information or something? Come on, give everyone a hint. Auntie Lin sent a voice message, her tone so sour it could pickle vegetables. Stocking up on so much stuff, and not even sharing a little with the neighbors. The richer you are, the stingier you get. Fang Yuqing sent me a private message. Zhang Yi, if you stock up on so much stuff, then if something really happens, you'll protect me, right? I replied with 4 words, we'll see. She was definitely stomping her feet in anger on the other side. That was exactly the effect I wanted. I wanted everyone to know that Zhang Yi's home had supplies. When the apocalypse really comes, they'll think of me. They'll come knocking, come begging me, and in the end come smashing my door. But this time, what awaits them won't be food. It will be a B16, grade blast-proof door, and 30-centimeter thick reinforced concrete walls. On the last day after the renovation was completed, I stood in the completely transformed house. The windows had become solid walls, with only a concealed vent connected to the air filtration system. The front door was as heavy as a bank vault door. Once shut, inside and outside were completely cut off. Both the ceiling and the floor were covered with steel plates, producing dull echoes when stepped on. The whole house had become a gigantic safe. and I was the only master inside it. The glasses guy said during the final inspection, "This is the craziest civilian project I've ever done." I patted him on the shoulder. "Thank you for preserving a spark of civilization for humanity." He laughed again, probably thinking I was a rich lunatic. It didn't matter. Next, my target was Walmart's South China Regional Warehouse. That was the largest single warehouse in the world, 1,500 meters long and 720 meters wide, storing enough supplies to provide for tens of millions of people for a week. I was the manager there. I knew every shelf, every surveillance camera, and every guard shift. If I could move that warehouse into my pocket dimension, I wouldn't be able to use it all up in 10 lifetimes. Apocalypse, come on. I'll be waiting in the safe house. And waiting for Fang Yuqing, for Andy Lin, for those good neighbors who in my previous life stomped my ribs to pieces and said they wanted to make soup with me. And this time, with no Zhang Yi's help in this life, it would be a miracle if that immoral old woman and her mischievous grandson Xiaohu could survive even 10 days. Zhang Yi had no interest in holding grudges against corpses. It wasn't that he was cruel. Once that day arrived, just taking care of oneself would already be hard enough for everyone. As for whether other people lived or died, naturally they came after him. After pushing all 3 cartloads of supplies back home, Zhang Yi told them to leave. "Zhang Yi, don't forget you owe us a treat." Fang Yuqing gave Zhang Yi a playful wink. But when Zhang Yi saw it, all he felt was a wave of nausea rise inside him. He brushed it off perfunctorily. The 2 women had originally planned to stay and look for clues that Zhang Yi was a secretly wealthy second-generation heir. But seeing that Zhang Yi had no mind to entertain them, they had no choice but to leave first. After they left, Zhang Yi opened his pocket dimension and put everything inside. He planned to observe whether these supplies would undergo any changes while stored in the space. By the time he finished all this, it was already very late. Zhang Yi did not rush to rest. Instead, he took out pen and paper and carefully planned the preparations for the next month. Although he was usually rather laid back, for the sake of staying alive, people could always unleash enough potential. To live comfortably in the apocalypse, the first thing was to solve the food problem, and that was easy to handle. Aside from the things I buy for daily use, everything else can be taken from the warehouse. But there's no rush on that. I need to do the investigation first, and I should collect them a few days before the apocalypse to avoid attracting other people's attention. If I get arrested, there's no way I could last more than a few days in a cell. Zhang Yi wrote down the word food in his notebook and put a check mark behind it. Then came heating. After the apocalypse arrives, energy supplies will be extremely scarce, and air conditioning will soon be unusable. So, I'll have to use the simplest method. A fireplace is the top choice. The principle behind a fireplace is similar to that of a heated brick bed. Both use primitive methods to keep warm. Winters in Europe are especially cold, and people get through the long, harsh winter this way. In that case, I'll have to renovate the house and preferably add insulating and thermal barrier layers. At the mention of renovation, Zhang Yi remembered how people had broken into his home in his previous life, and his heart tightened. I also need to turn my home into an impregnable steel fortress. First, install thick steel plates or alloy materials throughout the place. At the very least, it has to be able to withstand ordinary explosives. After the apocalypse arrives, people will do anything to survive. So I have to make thorough preparations. I can't joke around with my own safety. Zhang Yi has already tasted death once and absolutely does not want to experience it a second time. The safe house problem is easy enough to solve too. In Tianhai City, there are security companies that specialize in providing protection services for the powerful and wealthy. Zhang Yi remembered seeing news in his previous life saying that a top foreign billionaire had built a super fortress that could even withstand the attack of a small H weapon. Next, medicine. I have to prevent myself from getting sick and being unable to get treatment. There are many commonly used medicines in Walmart's warehouse that can treat minor illnesses like colds and fevers. But those are far from enough. The Cambrian storm will last at least several decades, so I have to make comprehensive preparations. Fortunately, Zhang Yi has fairly good connections in Tianhai City. After all, he works in warehouse management, so he also knows some staff who work in hospital warehousing. As long as he can offer enough money, he can get whatever medicine he needs. After these problems were solved, Zhang Yi tapped the notebook with the ballpoint pen in his hand. Next, there was one last problem left to solve. His gaze sharpened. That was weapons. Once the apocalypse arrives and humanity loses its morality, fights over supplies will be everywhere. Human life will be worth less than grass. If you want to stay alive, you must have enough force. Zhang Yi isn't some martial arts master, but no matter how skilled you are, you're still afraid of a kitchen knife. As long as the weapons I prepare are strong enough, I won't have to worry about that problem. Machetes, crowbars, and felling axes are easy enough to get. There are also channels for getting crossbows, air guns, and compound bows. But the most powerful of all is, of course, American-style Iato. This thing can only be obtained through the black market in China. Go abroad to get it? That's not realistic either. I'm unfamiliar with people and places outside, and one round trip would take many days. I don't have a foreign firearms license, and there's no way I could buy one from a gun store. Zhang Yi stroked his chin. There was no way to solve this problem for the time being. But he still had a month left, and as long as he was willing to spend money, he should be able to find a way. He spent 3 hours devising a perfect plan, then took a satisfying hot shower and laid down on his comfortable bed, quickly falling asleep. Early the next morning, Zhang Yi climbed out of bed. He hadn't slept particularly well that night and had woken up several times from nightmares. After waking up and finding that he was still lying in the warm, comfortable bed at home, he finally let out a long sigh of relief. That period during the apocalypse had caused tremendous trauma to his mind. To avoid repeating the same mistakes, Zhang Yi became even more determined to make absolutely foolproof preparations. After getting up, Zhang Yi made himself breakfast. Then he opened the dimensional space to check the changes in the supplies he had thrown inside. To his delight, the meat, fruit, and vegetables that had been left there overnight had not changed at all. It's hard to tell much with meat in a short time, but fruit and vegetables tend to lose freshness after being left overnight. Yet after being put into the dimensional space, those fruits and vegetables were exactly the same as when he bought them yesterday. My dimensional space exists independently of this world, so perhaps the rules governing the passage of time there are different too. Maybe time moves more slowly there, or is even completely still. This was terrific news. That way, I could put all kinds of things in there without any worries. However, when Zhang Yi checked the few fish he had put inside, he found that they were all dead. Even after dying, they still looked lifelike, and there were no signs of spoilage. Stroking his chin, Zhang Yi came to understand a bit more about the rules for using the dimensional space. Living things can't be put inside, or rather, even if they are put inside, they can't survive for long. It seems my idea of living in there myself isn't very realistic. This wasn't much of a problem anyway. The inside of the dimensional space was a vast white emptiness, nowhere near as comfortable as Zhang Yi's own home. As long as he could store things in it, that was enough. Thinking of this, all sorts of things appeared in Zhang Yi's mind. Since it could preserve fresh meat, vegetables, and fruit, then what about cooked dishes? Although Zhang Yi could cook for himself, he was still far from the level of a professional chef. If he had to rely only on his own cooking in the future, he would get tired of it sooner or later. So Zhang Yi immediately called Hongfu Tianxia, the largest 5-star hotel in Tianhai City. This hotel also offered delivery, and the quality and flavor of their dishes were first-rate. Zhang Yi loved eating there. "Hello, this is the Hongfu Tianxia Hotel. How may we help you?" Zhang Yi immediately said, "My family is inviting guests over, and we're going to host a running banquet for 3 days and 3 nights. So I need to reserve 500 tables of dishes." The person on the other end of the phone was also shocked. Even for them, preparing 500 tables of dishes would take quite a while. And they were a 5-star hotel. Even the cheapest banquet table would cost 3,000 or 4,000. For 500 tables, that would be more than 1 million. The staff member didn't dare make the decision on her own and quickly said, "Please wait a moment. I'll go ask our manager." After a while, another person took over the call. "Hello, sir. I am Chen Dingfang, the manager of Hongfu Hotel. May I ask how I should address you?" Zhang Yi replied, "My name is Zhang Yi. About my order for 500 banquet tables. Is there any problem on your end?" The manager was startled. Since the hotel opened, this was the first time they had encountered something like this. But with such a large order, if it came to them, they would definitely take it. "Mr. Zhang, 500 banquet tables will cost over 1 million. If you need them, we will prepare them for you immediately, but you will need to pay a 200,000 deposit in advance." Zhang Yi replied, "That's no problem. Send me your account number later, and I'll transfer the money to you." With money involved, things naturally became easier to handle. The manager readily agreed, then added Zhang Yi as a contact, and sent him the bank account number. Without any hesitation, Zhang Yi transferred 200,000 over. After confirming with accounting that the deposit had arrived, the manager immediately began instructing the various departments. "Quick, quick, quick. We've got a big order. Tell the purchasing department to stock up immediately, and for the time being, the kitchen shouldn't take any other delivery orders. Within 1 day, we have to prepare the 500 banquet tables the customer wants." On the other side, after hanging up the phone, Zhang Yi couldn't help sighing. Although money would be useless in a month, for now, he still needed money to buy things. Between the inheritance left by his parents and his own savings, he had only about 2 million in total. Just like that, half of it was gone. To be honest, it still pained him a little. But on second thought, this was also a good thing. Many people held tightly to large amounts of cash, only for it to later turn into worthless paper. Not everyone gets the chance to spend their money. But there are still many places where I'll need money next, so I have to find a way to make some money. Zhang Yi's eyes immediately fell on his own home. This apartment was located in the inner ring of Tianhai City, with an area of 120 square meters, and the residential complex was built 10 years ago. At the current market rate, it would cost more than 40,000 per square meter. In other words, this apartment is worth at least more than 5 million now. I've got it. I can get a mortgage loan, and then I'll have money, right? Zhang Yi let out a sly chuckle. After borrowing this money, he wouldn't even have to pay it back. There was no describing how good that felt. He immediately left home, got in his car, and drove to the bank to apply for a loan. While on the road, he received a message from Fang Yuqing. Zhang Yi, weekends are so boring. I really wish someone could go out and wander around with me. Zhang Yi took one glance and tossed his phone aside. He arrived at the bank and started handling the loan procedures. Because Zhang Yi's loan amount was large, his documents were complete, and the house had been bought in full. So the loan was approved very quickly, though the bank only gave him a 4 million loan. Zhang Yi didn't bargain over it either. After all, it was money for nothing anyway. And he had no time to argue with the bank. After signing without hesitation, the bank also transferred the money into his account. Now, after subtracting the more than 1 million spent on the banquet, I still have around 5 million left. That should be enough to renovate the house. But I still need to buy large quantities of medicine and weapons. This money might not be enough. Zhang Yi stroked his chin and began thinking about how to get more money. Just then, a blonde-haired punk by the roadside saw Zhang Yi deep in thought. His eyes lighting up as he immediately walked over. Hey, buddy, do you need money? Zhang Yi looked up at the blonde-haired punk. Who are you? The smile on the blonde-haired punk's face deepened, and he lowered his voice to ask, let me just ask you this. Do you need money right now? And the bank isn't willing to lend it to you? As soon as Zhang Yi heard that, he understood what the man in front of him did. He was definitely a loan shark. Zhang Yi's heart stirred, and a plan came to mind. He let out a sigh and said with a troubled look, yeah, my family's business urgently needs funds for cash flow. But the bank. At this point, Zhang Yi deliberately revealed a distressed expression. The blonde-haired punk looked like he instantly understood too. If someone could borrow money from a bank through normal channels, who would go borrow from a loan shark? He said to Zhang Yi, yeah, banks are really strict about lending money these days. There are all kinds of rules and restrictions, and the money comes through slowly too. But brother, if you urgently need money, I can help you with that. Zhang Yi looked at the blonde-haired punk cautiously. You? Can you really do it? I need several million. Hearing it was a big deal, the blonde-haired punk's expression clearly grew more excited. He took a business card out of his pocket and handed it to Zhang Yi. The business our company specializes in is rescuing people in times of dire need. As long as you need money, coming to us is the right choice. Zhang Yi took a look. The business card said Duo Loan Financial Services Company, Limited, and the blonde-haired punk's title was Business Manager Hu Minghua. Zhang Yi said excitedly, can you really lend me money? I need 5 million. As long as you can help me get through this difficult time, I guarantee I'll pay the money back in at most 3 months. Hu Minghua smiled and said, this is something we can discuss. Our company is very capable. We specialize in helping people like you who are short of funds. Come on, let's go to the company and talk this over properly. With a look of anticipation on his face, Zhang Yi nodded and followed Hu Minghua to their company. The so-called company was inside a remote office building. After entering, Hu Minghua brought Zhang Yi to their boss's office. The owner of this lending company looked burly and rough, yet he was wearing a brand-name Balino suit. He was clearly trying hard to create the image of a legitimate company. However, there was a hint of viciousness between his brows. If he hadn't struggled in society for many years, he wouldn't have had that kind of aura. Hu Minghua introduced Zhang Yi's basic situation to the boss in front of him. Manager, this is a client who wants to borrow money from us. The boss was named Chen Xiong. After seeing Zhang Yi, he put on a smile and invited him to sit down. Mr. Zhang, how much would you like to borrow? As expected of a loan shark company. The content of the conversation was just that simple and blunt. A company like this was not legitimate to begin with, so there were not so many rules and regulations. Besides, they had plenty of ways to make you repay the money, so they were not worried at all about you defaulting. Zhang Yi said, I want to borrow 5 million. Chen Xiong frowned. Oh, that's no small amount. But Mr. Zhang, let me say this first. Our interest rates are very high. You need to be mentally prepared. Hu Minghua said from the side. Mr. Zhang's business urgently needs capital turnover. And once the business gets through its cash flow problem, won't this money be earned back very quickly, right? The two of them played off each other, and Zhang Yi took it all in. Zhang Yi still pretended to look anxious and said, "Yes, I'll be able to repay it very soon. If the interest is high, then so be it. As long as you can lend me the money." A smile appeared on Chen Xiong's face. "That's good. Our interest rate is 40%. If you borrow 5 million, then when you repay it, you'll have to return 7 million. So first, you need to write me an IOU for 7 million. In addition, you must have something of sufficient value as collateral. A house, a factory, a car, all are acceptable." Zhang Yi pretended to hesitate for a moment, then gritted his teeth, and took out his property ownership certificate from his person. He had brought it for a bank loan, and it just so happened to be on him. "My apartment is worth over 5 million. Using it as collateral for you should be enough, right? I also have a Mercedes worth 300,000. If I can't pay it back by then, you can take that too." It was Chen Xiong's first time seeing such a straightforward client, so he quickly took the property ownership certificate and glanced at it. After confirming the information on Zhang Yi's apartment, he felt even more satisfied inside. Because at the current market price, that apartment could sell for at least 5.5 million. Add a car to that, and there was no way he could lose money on this deal. However, Chen Xiong still put on a somewhat dissatisfied look. "Mr. Zhang, your apartment is worth at most 4 to 5 million. But if you want to take 5 million from me, I'm taking a bit of a loss." Zhang Yi looked horrified and said excitedly, "Boss Chen, you absolutely have to help me. I urgently need money right now. As long as you can transfer the money to me today, I only need 4.5 million. Chen Xiong and Hu Minghua exchanged a glance, their eyes full of mockery. The business they did was taking advantage of people in desperate straits. The more urgently someone needed money, the harder they would fleece them. No, 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 this deal really isn't worth it. In the end, after a round of bargaining, the two sides reached an agreement at 4 million. However, Zhang Yi demanded that the money must be transferred into his account today. Although the lending company was black-hearted, their work efficiency was truly high. This was probably also the only area where they had an advantage over banks. After signing the contract, Zhang Yi's account soon received 4 million in cash. He laughed secretly to himself. To Chen Xiong, this money was basically like throwing meat buns at a dog, gone for good. Why does that feel a bit like I'm insulting myself? Zhang Yi left grinning with the money. After he left, hearty laughter from Chen Xiong and Hu Minghua came from inside the office. This deal was really easy. That idiot really just took the 4 million and left. Chen Xiong said smugly. On this deal, we can make at least 2 to 3 million. We won't have to worry about this month's performance anymore. Hu Minghua leaned against the desk and said with a smile, "Boss, he signed the contract so readily. Could there be some problem with that house?" Chen Xiong held the property ownership certificate in his hand and said with a smile, "This property ownership certificate is genuine. There's no problem. As long as the house is his, he won't be able to get away." With the property ownership certificate and that 7 million IOU in hand, they would naturally have ways to get that house when the time came. Not only that, they had even more ways to completely squeeze Zhang Yi dry. Chen Xiong narrowed his eyes and took an elegant sip of coffee. If it really came down to it, they could contact a few overseas organizations and see whether he had any valuable parts on him to sell. "We never do business at a loss." Zhang Yi left the lending company cheerfully. He glanced back at the office building, a faint trace of mockery at the corner of his mouth. "They're all such good people, giving me money for nothing to spend." From now on, Zhang Yi and Chen Xiong and Hu Minghua would never have any further dealings. Or rather, there was a high probability that they would all die in the doomsday cold wave 1 month later. Zhang Yi now had about 9 million in funds on hand. That was completely enough to carry out his plan. After all, when purchasing any goods next, he could pay by using the method of prepaying a deposit. These 9 million would have the purchasing power of tens of millions. There was no need to get even more money. Otherwise, Zhang Yi wouldn't have minded taking advantage of various online lending platforms. Driving his car, Zhang Yi arrived at the famous Zhanlong Security Company in Tianhai City. Zhanlong was one of the largest security companies in China, specializing in providing security services for the very wealthy and celebrities. Sometimes, even some high-ranking officials would ask them for assistance when traveling. The reason Zhang Yi came to them was that in his previous life he had heard that Zhanlong Company had, for the son of the richest man in Jiangnan province, built a top-tier safe house worth $1 billion. It was said that the family was a second-generation rich family that had made its start in real estate, and they were still able to live very comfortably during the apocalypse. And the safe house built for them by Zhanlong Company had contributed greatly. Zhang Yi came to Zhanlong Company and explained his purpose to the front desk. Immediately, someone from the business department invited Zhang Yi into a lounge. The female receptionist served Zhang Yi freshly ground coffee. Not long afterward, a burly man with a crew cut walked in. He was wearing a black suit and looked very much like a thug in a suit. It made people worry at any moment that his clothes might burst from being stretched too tight. But it had to be said that seeing someone like this would fill customers with a sense of security. "Hello, sir. My name is Wu Huiren, and I'm the manager of the business department. What can we do for you?" Wu Huiren sat beside Zhang Yi and asked. Zhang Yi took a sip of coffee and said, "I need you to build a safe house for me. The kind of top-level safe house that can withstand the end of the world." Hearing this, Wu Huiren's expression immediately turned serious. If other people heard this, they would find it very laughable, because no one would believe in any so-called end of the world. But to Zhanlong Company, this was no joke, because in this world, the richest and most powerful group of people are often also the ones most afraid of death. A long time ago, some super rich people abroad spared no expense, spending hundreds of millions of US dollars to build doomsday shelters. In recent years, many wealthy people around the world have also begun to imitate this behavior. Some may genuinely fear encountering large-scale natural disasters. Others simply have too many enemies in daily life, so they hope to add a bit more security for themselves. And so Zhanlong Security Company's doomsday safe houses naturally came into being in response to the market. When Wu Huiren heard that Zhang Yi wanted to build an apocalyptic-level safe house, he immediately became more polite. They only received a few big orders like this each year. "Mr. Zhang, we at Zhanlong are a world-class security company. We can definitely meet your requirements." Zhang Yi immediately said, "If I ask you, at the height of the 24th floor, to completely renovate an entire residence, can you do it?" Wu Huiren's gaze turned a little strange. Usually, this kind of safe house is a detached villa or an underground shelter. Very few wealthy people choose to build a safe house inside an apartment. But since the customer made the request, their company would of course fulfill it. Wu Huiren smiled confidently. "Of course that's not a problem. We at Zhanlong are a top-tier security company in the world. With our technology, we can absolutely achieve what you're asking for." Hearing Wu Huiren say this, Zhang Yi also began to form a plan. In that case, he chose to turn his own home into a safe house. He chose to stay because he had to personally watch how those who had harmed him would die. Wu Huiren took out a tablet and handed it to Zhang Yi. "Our company's services are all custom-made. You can choose the services you need from here, and the corresponding prices are listed on it. In the information age, communication really is convenient." Zhang Yi took the tablet he handed over, then began carefully screening the services on it. It had to be said, a professional company really was professional. As long as you have the money, Zhanlong Security Company can satisfy almost all of your requirements, including building safe houses 100 meters underground and on the seabed. However, those projects would take too long for Zhang Yi. He only had 1 month. After reading the introduction to the safe house options, Zhang Yi immediately selected the service items he wanted. First was full house reinforcement. For their home, all structural materials would be replaced. The walls, ceiling, and floor would all use 200 mm thick alloy, directly replacing the original walls. This was an aerospace material, weighing only 1/3 as much as steel, yet 10 times stronger than refined steel. Using this material to build a safe house would allow it to be embedded into the building where Zhang Yi lived, and there would be no problem of overloading the structure. The window glass would use the best bulletproof glass in the world today. Next was the ventilation system, all fitted with air filtration functions. No harmful gas would be able to invade from outside. Finally, there was a full monitoring system that could conduct all-around, no blind spot surveillance inside and outside the residence. And the doors would all be replaced with heavy anti-theft doors made of the same material as bank vault doors. Even small bombs would have a hard time blasting them open. In short, Zhang Yi had only one requirement. That was to turn his home into an absolute ironclad fortress that no one could break into. After checking off all these, Zhang Yi handed the tablet to Wu Huiren. After reading it, Wu Huiren couldn't help widening his eyes as well. A home of only 120 square meters, yet built as tightly sealed as an iron barrel. Add weapons, and this is practically a fortress, Wu Huiren muttered. Hearing this, a gleam flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. "Oh, you know something about fortresses too?" Wu Huiren chuckled and said, "I used to be a mercenary overseas, so I'm thoroughly familiar with this kind of military knowledge." A flash of inspiration crossed Zhang Yi's mind. He suddenly lowered his voice and said to Wu Huiren, "Then do you have a way to get guns?" That single sentence made Wu Huiren's expression turn serious as well. In China, Private individuals are not allowed to possess firearms. Mr. Zhang, you should understand that, in principle, that sort of thing is not allowed to be privately owned. Wu Huairan also said in a low voice. Have you run into some terrifying enemy, making you this afraid? Zhang Yi went along with it. That's right. I've offended some underworld people. They act with extreme ruthlessness, and they have guns in their hands. So I was thinking, could I also get some guns for self-defense? Otherwise, I can only hide in the house and take a beating, and that's no solution. Wu Huairan chuckled. Mr. Zhang, I'm afraid I can't help you with that sort of thing. We're a legitimate company. But from the look in Wu Huairan's eyes, Zhang Yi could tell that it wasn't that he couldn't get guns, but that he was unwilling to wade into muddy waters. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. Then he said to Wu Huairan, this safe room project I'm doing is going to cost more than 8 million. If something still happens to me afterward, it won't reflect too well on your company either. He stared at Wu Huairan and said word by word, I just want something for self-defense. If you can help me with this, I won't treat you poorly. Wu Huairan said nothing. He frowned, weighing the matter. He naturally had connections, but he wasn't clear on Zhang Yi's background, so of course he didn't dare casually make an introduction for him. Please head back first. Although I can't handle this matter myself, I can help ask around for you. If there happens to be any news, I'll contact you again. Wu Huairan was clearly unable to make up his mind for the moment. However, Zhang Yi didn't press too hard either. Something like guns really did require caution. He smiled and said, all right, then I'll wait for your news. Oh, right, this matter is urgent for me. Please come help me build the safe room as soon as possible. Wu Huairan said, at most half a month, and we can complete it for you. After Zhang Yi finished talking with Wu Huairan, he signed the contract on the spot. Likewise, he paid a 1 million yuan deposit. As for the remaining balance, there would be no chance to pay it in this lifetime. After leaving Zhanglong's security company, the housing problem was basically solved. Next, Zhang Yi returned to his car and called an acquaintance of his, Lu Yang. Lu Yang ran a hunting ground in Tianhai City. He had leased several hundred mu of land in Xishan, where all kinds of harmless small animals were kept for people to go hunting for recreation. In his hands, he had many crossbows, compound bows, and air guns obtained through legal channels. Zhang Yi had gone there to have fun a few times before, so he had Lu Yang's contact information. He called Lu Yang and asked him to buy a batch for him, and said that he was willing to purchase them at a premium. Lu Yang was a businessman, and on top of that, there were times when he would ask Zhang Yi for favors as well. So he agreed to it quite easily. Brother Zhang, what are you buying so many pieces of equipment for? These things can only be used for hunting, or just for your own amusement. You can't use them to hurt people. Lu Yang asked with a smile, though there was a bit of caution in his words. After all, the goods were being sold through him. If Zhang Yi ended up using these weapons to hurt someone, he would get into trouble too. Of course, someone who could open a hunting ground in Tianhai City naturally had connections. But there was no need for him to take on risk because of an ordinary friend like Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi laughed and casually came up with a reason. You're overthinking it. I've arranged with a few friends to go hunting at an African wildlife park after a while, so I'm getting some extra gear. Lu Yang clicked his tongue twice. Yo, Brother Zhang really knows how to have fun. But Africa has quite a few lions and hyenas, so be careful. Then it's settled. How long will it take for you to get the stuff ready for me? I already have stock on hand here. Just come pick it up when you have time later. Zhang Yi didn't dawdle either and immediately drove to the Xishan hunting ground to buy the items and bring them back. For him, time was extremely precious right now, and not a single moment could be wasted. He bought 5 refined steel crossbows and 3 high-end compound bows from Lu Yang. And as for arrows and bolts, he bought 300 of each. In addition, he also bought 2 excellent hunting knives. They were forged from Damascus steel, extremely tough and sharp. And unless they were used for prolonged chopping against hard objects, they would be very difficult to damage. This kind of thing was definitely efficient for self-defense, chopping people. All of it filled an entire trunk to the brim. Looking at this huge pile of equipment, Zhang Yi suddenly felt a strong sense of security. He then hauled the entire load of gear back home. Since everything had been purchased through legitimate channels, and he himself had gotten a hunting license back, then just for fun, he wasn't worried about being questioned by the police. By the time he got home, it was already dusk. Zhang Yi went out again and enjoyed a hearty hot pot meal by himself at Haidaleo. Thinking that in the future he'd have to make hot pot himself, he immediately pulled out his money and ordered 10,000 servings of hot pot base from Haidaleo. The Haidaleo staff were dumbfounded and even thought Zhang Yi might be from a rival business, there to cause trouble. Fortunately, Haidaleo's service was quite good, so they didn't fall out with Zhang Yi on the spot. Later, the store manager came over, asked Zhang Yi a few questions, and then accepted the order. However, The condition was payment in cash, to prevent the possibility that Zhang Yi was from a rival business trying to sabotage them. Zhang Yi was very straightforward and paid over $1 million on the spot. Such a generous show of spending made the store manager so happy he couldn't stop smiling, and he even threw in an extra 500 servings for Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi left his address and told the Heideleo staff to deliver the hot pot base there later. As for the food ingredients, when the time came he could just take them directly from Walmart's warehouse. Only the hot pot base was something they wouldn't actually put up for sale, and even the bagged hot pot seasoning available on the market was actually far inferior to what the restaurant used. Otherwise, no customers would come to the restaurant to eat hot pot. After finishing his meal, Zhang Yi was getting ready to head home when he received a call on his phone from the manager of a 5-star hotel. Mr. Zhang, the 500 banquet tables you ordered have been prepared. May I ask if it's convenient for you to receive them now? Just deliver them over. Zhang Yi returned home and waited for them to bring over all the delicious food and drinks. These 500 banquet tables were enough for him to eat for 2 or 3 years. Anyway, he still had 8 or 9 million on hand, so he didn't feel the slightest bit of pain spending money now. Instead, he was anxious to spend it all as quickly as possible. On the way back, Zhang Yi thought about what else he liked to eat. So he placed orders with several major restaurants in Tianhai City as well, asking each of them to deliver 100 tables to him. The 8 major cuisines, including Western food, he ordered several thousand tables in total. With this, he had basically covered half a lifetime's worth of meals for himself. Not long after, the catering trucks from Hongfu Tianxia Grand Hotel arrived at the entrance of Yuelu residential complex. A mighty convoy of 20 or 30 vehicles blocked the road so tightly that not even a drop of water could pass through, leaving the neighbors in the complex staring in astonishment. Uncle Yu, the security guard, hurried forward to stop them and asked what they were there for. The hotel manager explained the situation, but Uncle Yu still insisted that the homeowner come over before he would open the gate. After all, they had come in such a big formation, and who knew what was inside the vehicles? So for the safety of the complex, he couldn't let them through casually. The hotel manager had no choice but to call Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi then went downstairs and came to the entrance of the complex. At this moment, the entrance of the complex was packed with people, including neighbors from his apartment building, as well as Feng Yuqing and Lin Caning, who had come to watch the excitement. Zhang Yi walked up to Uncle Yu, the security guard, and said with a smile, "Uncle Yu, these people are here delivering food for me. Let them in." Uncle Yu's face was full of shock. Delivering food? What on earth are you eating that it takes more than a dozen trucks to deliver it? When the surrounding neighbors heard that they were food delivery trucks, they also burst into an uproar. Good grief, that's got to be at least a few hundred tables, right? Where is he planning to put it all? Could it be that something is going on at Zhang Yi's home, and he's going to host a banquet? Is he getting married? But several hundred tables would be way too terrifying. Look carefully. That's Hongfu Tianxia, a 5-star luxury hotel. Reserving several hundred tables, there would cost at least over $1 million. Oh my god, a single banquet costing over $1 million. Zhang Yi is really hiding his true wealth. We only knew before that his family was fairly well off, but now it looks like he might be a super rich tycoon. The neighbors were all talking at once, and the way they looked at Zhang Yi turned burning hot, with a few traces of awe mixed in. Seeing this scene from the roadside, Feng Yuqing pressed her lips together, even more determined to win Zhang Yi over. She took the initiative to walk over to Zhang Yi and said with a smile, "Zhang Yi, what has your family been busy with lately? You bought so many things." Zhang Yi ignored her and instead took out a cigarette and handed it to Uncle Yu. When Uncle Yu saw the homeowner had arrived, he opened the gate and let Hongfu Tianxia Hotel's convoy enter the residential complex. Zhang Yi led the way in front, and although he didn't pay Feng Yuqing any attention, she didn't seem to mind at all and stayed by his side, chatting and laughing. "If there's something going on at home, why can't you tell me about it? Aren't we good friends? From now on, I hope I can understand you a little better. Just don't treat me like an outsider." Zhang Yi gave her a long look, then sneered, "All this stuff was bought from my boss, and the last time we went to that Western restaurant, he was the one who paid." As he spoke, he even let out a sigh. "Oh, it would be nice if I were really that rich." Feng Yuqing's expression changed at once. You're not joking with me, are you?" Zhang Yi spread his hands. "Why would I lie to you? We've known each other for years. It's not like you don't know my family's situation. My parents have both passed away, and I'm just a warehouse supervisor. How would I have any money?" His explanation made Feng Yuqing's expression turn uncertain. She had indeed suspected that, for someone to be a rich second-generation heir, their family would at least have to run a big business. And Zhang Yi's parents had been gone for years. Although they had left behind some family assets, that still didn't make him a rich second-generation heir. Now that Zhang Yi had personally admitted he wasn't one, all the doubts in Fang Yuqing's heart were finally explained. She silently put a little more distance between herself and Zhang Yi, then smoothed her hair and said with a polite smile, "Whether you're a rich second-generation heir or not, we're still best friends, aren't we? I'm not some materialistic woman." She deliberately stressed the word friends. A manipulative flirt never burns bridges completely, because she still needs backup options and simps to serve her. Zhang Yi curled his lip and said nothing more to her. Meanwhile, on the other side, Hongfu Tianxia's staff began moving table after table of lavish dishes to the location Zhang Yi had designated. Zhang Yi usually got along well with people, so he borrowed an underground storage room in the complex from the property management. He had them put everything into the storage room first. Although the food for 500 tables was a huge amount, once it was packed into meal containers, it actually didn't take up an absurd amount of space. What Zhang Yi ordered was all top-tier food: abalone, sea cucumber, shark fin, fish maw, Australian lobster, truffles, caviar, everything one could want. The feast for 500 tables. Even moving it all into the storage room took quite a while. Even the hotel manager was a little dumbfounded. In all his years as a manager, this was the first time he had encountered such a huge takeout order. But Zhang Yi told them to just keep moving the food into the storage room. As for himself, he secretly waited until the movers had left, then put all the food into his own pocket dimension. Other people might have their suspicions and think there was something strange about Zhang Yi. But in this world, everyone is pretty busy. So who has the spare time to care about an unrelated person like you? So whether it was the neighbors or the hotel staff, at most they just made a few comments. No one truly took it to heart. Very quickly, Zhang Yi stored all 500 banquet tables worth of food into his pocket dimension. By evening, Zhang Yi received a call from Wu Huiran, a manager at Zhanlong Company. Wu Huiran told Zhang Yi that they had finished their preparations and could come to build the safe house for him at any time. He asked Zhang Yi when it would be convenient to start the work. Zhang Yi directly told them they could come over tomorrow. As for himself, he planned to move into a hotel first. After discussing the safe house, Zhang Yi waited for what Wu Huiran had to say next. There was another very important matter Zhang Yi wanted from Wu Huiran, and that was to get an equalizer. After hesitating for quite a while, Wu Huiran finally lowered his voice and said to Zhang Yi, "If you really have that kind of need, I can recommend a connection for you. But the price will be a bit steep." Zhang Yi nodded. Of course he understood that. But when it came to money, he no longer cared at all. That was not a problem, as long as the quality was good. Wu Huiran said casually, "All right, since that's the case, I'll help introduce you. In 3 days, I'll inform you of the location for the transaction." The gun connection was basically settled, and Zhang Yi felt much more at ease. In the apocalypse, with this thing, whether he encountered humans or inhuman creatures, he would have tremendous confidence. The next day, Zhang Yi packed some important things from home into his own space. The house was going to be turned into a safe house, so he had to temporarily move into a hotel. Early in the morning, 3 black vans drove into Ulu residential complex. A large group of workers from Zhanlong Company, dressed in uniforms, got out and began measuring data for Zhang Yi's house. Quite a few neighbors around them watched the scene with curiosity in their eyes. Has Zhang Yi taken the wrong medicine lately? Why is he always stirring up so much nonsense? A few colleagues even joked. Yeah, a few days ago at the supermarket, I even saw him buying 3 cartloads of food. Haha, anyone who didn't know better would think the apocalypse was coming. Stocking up on so much food. Wouldn't it all be wasted once it expired? Maybe there's something wrong with him mentally. Everyone was puzzled by Zhang Yi's abnormal behavior, but no one actually cared. They just treated Zhang Yi as a joke. Even Fang Yuqing and Lin Caning thought Zhang Yi had something wrong with his head. Lin Caning said in sudden realization, "I think I've figured it out." No wonder he went to eat at a Michelin 3-star restaurant that day. So his brain was broken. Fang Yuqing frowned, but felt especially upset, thinking of how that day she had even taken the initiative to strike up a conversation with Zhang Yi and helped him push so many things home. To the point that her feet went weak from exhaustion, she was full of anger. What on earth is Zhang Yi doing? Lin Caning said worriedly, but he promised to treat us to a big meal. He won't forget, right? She had been longing to eat at a Michelin 3-star restaurant. But Fang Yuqing gave a snort of laughter. Forget it. Looking at how mentally abnormal he's been lately. Even if he invited me, I wouldn't go. If people found out we were eating with him, how embarrassing would that be? She was planning to marry rich in the future, so she absolutely could not ruin her reputation. When Lin Caning heard Fang Yuqing say that, although she felt very unwilling inside, she had no choice but to give up. As for Zhang Yi, He simply did not care at all what the neighbors thought. In a month, they would understand who the real joke was. Zhang Yi left home, then drove to the Walmart warehouse. Today was Monday, so it was time to go to work, and while he was there, he could also thoroughly scout out the warehouse to make it easier to make his move later. Walmart's warehouse was in the economic development zone, on the outskirts of Tianhai City. Because land prices here are relatively cheap, many warehouses belonging to major groups in Tianhai City are concentrated here. Even some pharmaceutical companies' warehouses are located here. This would make it easier for Zhang Yi to get hold of some special effect medicines later. After arriving at the Walmart warehouse, Zhang Yi clocked in for work as usual. As the warehouse supervisor, Zhang Yi was extremely familiar with this place. It could be said that he knew every warehouse, and even every shelf, like the back of his hand. In the past, whenever he came here, he would always feel especially bored. But today, seeing these enormous warehouses and those supplies worth billions or even tens of billions, all he felt was unstoppable excitement. Because before long, all of these things would be taken by him and become his most important living resources in the apocalypse. As Walmart's South China Central warehouse, the amount of supplies here was beyond anyone's imagination. There were tens of thousands of cases of cola alone in storage. The entire warehouse covered more than 1 million square meters, packed full of all kinds of daily necessities. Among them, besides food, clothing, hardware tools, and other daily necessities, there were even cars, drones, diesel generators, and barrels of gasoline. It could almost be said that as long as it was something a supermarket was allowed to sell, you could definitely buy it here. Zhang Yi had worked here for many years and had long been thoroughly familiar with what was placed on every shelf. Moreover, he was also very clear about the work schedules here and the locations of the cameras. Although the surveillance here was extremely tight, he, who was familiar with its loopholes, could cripple the entire surveillance system within 10 minutes. Then, using the power of his system space, he could take everything here away. But for now, Zhang Yi was in no hurry to make a move. There was still plenty of time, and he did not want to alert the enemy. After strolling around the warehouse, he left. With a pack of huangalu tucked away, he came to the warehouse of the neighboring ruining pharmaceutical company. Since they usually worked in the same area, he was fairly familiar with the staff here as well. After coming over, Zhang Yi found one of their warehouse managers, Zhou Hairan. Everyone usually knew each other's backgrounds well. In the warehouses of large groups, there was no shortage of people who lived off the warehouse by pilfering from it. This Zhou Hairan's brother-in-law was a vice president of the ruining group. So ordinarily, he had often stolen some medicines from the warehouse and sold them. After Zhang Yi found Zhou Hairan, he chatted with him for a while, then indirectly revealed his purpose. He hoped to get a few boxes of special effect medicines for treating acute illnesses. Zhou Hairan was somewhat guarded at first, but later, when Zhang Yi said that as long as he could get the medicines, he could pay twice the market price. Hearing that Zhang Yi was willing to pay such a high price, Zhou Hairan immediately could not hold back. In the end, the two struck a deal at 3 million for 5 large boxes of medicine. Judging by the needs of a normal person, even all the times they would get sick in a lifetime combined would not use up even half of it. After settling the medicines, Zhang Yi had basically prepared all the supplies needed for the apocalypse. With less than a month left before the apocalypse, he naturally had no mood to keep working. So he went to the warehouse manager's office and lied that an elderly clansman from his hometown had passed away and that he needed to go back to attend the funeral, asking for 20 days of leave. Zhang Yi usually got along very well with people, and he also had a good relationship with the manager. So although the length of the leave was a bit outrageous, he was not given a hard time and got the leave approved very easily. For the next period of time, Zhang Yi planned to lie comfortably in a 5-star hotel. Then he would wait for the supplies he had purchased to arrive one after another, as well as for the Safehouse to be completed. When he walked out of the manager's office, he happened to see Fang Yuqing sticking her butt out as she poured coffee in front of the coffee machine. It had to be said that this woman really did have some capital to play the innocent seductress. There was an air of sluttiness in her very bones. Even when pouring coffee, she didn't forget to sway that little butt from side to side. Sure enough, it attracted some young male dogs to come fawn over her. A guy nearby grinned and invited Fang Yuqing to go see Jay Chou's concert with him, waving the tickets in his hand as if showing off. This man's name was Zhou Peng, and Zhang Yi had a rather deep impression of him, because they also lived in the same residential complex, and he was Fang Yuqing's loyal simp. Among the people who caused Zhang Yi's death in his previous life, he was one of them. Zhou Peng was fawning over Fang Yuqing at the side. But obviously, Fang Yuqing wasn't interested in a man like Zhou Peng. In terms of financial circumstances, Zhou Peng was much worse off than Zhang Yi. He didn't even own his home and was renting instead. But Fang Yuqing still said to him with a smile, "Thank you, Zhou Peng. But I just happened to have plans with friends that night." What a pity. A look of disappointment instantly flashed across Zhou Peng's face. He had spent an entire month's salary on those 2 concert tickets. He had originally hoped to take the opportunity to confess to Fang Yuqing at the concert. But unexpectedly, it all went down the drain. Seeing this scene, a mocking smile appeared at the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth. He knew that this simp would never get any results in the end. But while Zhou Peng was feeling dejected, he saw Zhang Yi beside him with a smile on his face, and immediately became furious. To deflect his own embarrassment, he immediately walked over and said to Zhang Yi, "What you did was really out of line. You're a grown man, and you actually made a woman help you move things. Aren't you ashamed?" Yuqing came to work today, saying her waist was sore the whole time. "If something like this happens again, I hope you won't trouble her." Zhang Yi glanced at Fang Yuqing. So it turned out this woman had spread the matter around. Fang Yuqing even said hypocritically, It's okay. Actually, there's nothing really wrong with my body. It's just that I'm not cut out for physical labor, and it seems like I strained my waist a little." As she spoke, she even reached out and pinched her slim waist, then frowned and put on a pained expression. In order to show off his macho side in front of Fang Yuqing, Zhou Peng immediately pointed at Zhang Yi with great bravado. "Hurry up and give Yuqing 500 yuan for medical treatment." Who would have thought Zhang Yi's gaze turned cold, and he glared at Zhou Peng as he cursed. "She volunteered to help me move things. I never asked her to help. Besides, what the hell are you? To be pointing fingers at me here? Do you really think you're somebody?" Zhang Yi's furious tirade was sharp and satisfying, scaring both Zhou Peng and Fang Yuqing silly. In the warehouse, Zhou Peng was just an ordinary clerk with no power or influence. The reason he dared to berate Zhang Yi was only because Zhang Yi usually had a good temper and didn't like arguing with people. But when he saw that Zhang Yi was truly angry, Zhou Peng instantly chickened out a little. Why are you yelling so loudly? I was just discussing it with you, that's all." Zhang Yi let out a cold laugh and turned to leave. He couldn't be bothered to waste words with Zhou Peng, because now, when Zhang Yi looked at anyone, it was as if he were looking at dead people. A month later, 99% of the people around him would die one after another in the apocalyptic extreme cold storm. So why should he waste words on the dead? After Zhang Yi left, Zhou Peng ran over to Fang Yuqing and muttered in a low voice, "Yuqing, I told you Zhang Yi is no good. You'd better stay away from him from now on." Fang Yuqing frowned, also feeling puzzled inside. Because in the past few days, Zhang Yi seemed to have completely become a different person. After seeing her, he didn't even take the initiative to come over and greet her anymore. He didn't even chat with her every night anymore or say goodnight to her. There must be something strange going on, Fang Yuqing thought to herself. After getting off work, Zhang Yi drove straight to a 5-star hotel in Tianhai City. It happened to be Hongfu Tianxia, where he had ordered food before. When the manager of Hongfu Tianxia heard that Zhang Yi had arrived, he immediately arranged a guest room for him with a beaming smile. A room in a 5-star hotel cost more than 1,000 a night. But Zhang Yi didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache. Anyway, he still had several million in hand. If he couldn't spend it all, that would be the real waste. That night, for the first time ever, the White Lotus Fang Yuqing took the initiative to send Zhang Yi a message. "Fang Yuqing, Zhang Yi, I passed by your place today and saw people renovating it." Zhang Yi curled his lip. That's right. Fang Yuqing, you've seemed really strange lately, stocking up on things and renovating your house. Is something going to happen soon?" Zhang Yi couldn't help raising an eyebrow. This White Lotus might be bad, but she certainly wasn't stupid. It seemed that his strange behavior lately had indeed caught her attention. But Zhang Yi didn't care. Other people's opinions meant nothing to him now. Nothing. He replied coldly, then tossed his phone aside. On the other end, Fang Yuqing looked at Zhang Yi's lukewarm attitude toward her and felt very upset inside. For the past 2 years, Zhang Yi had always treated her extremely well. He had always shown concern for her and found all kinds of excuses to chat with her every night. Yet recently, it was as if he had become a completely different person toward her. Not only had his attitude turned cold, he didn't even take the initiative to chat with her anymore. This made Fang Yuqing feel very uncomfortable. She could be uninterested in Zhang Yi, but she absolutely would not allow Zhang Yi to lose interest in her. In Fang Yuqing's eyes, that meant a fish in her pond had escaped. Although Zhang Yi wasn't a rich second-generation heir, he still counted as a high-quality, well-off middle-class young man. If she couldn't find a rich second-generation heir to marry in the future, she could still give Zhang Yi a chance to be her backup. Fang Yuqing picked up her phone and sent another message. "It feels like we've been in touch less lately. It's making me feel a little lonely." But after waiting for a long time, she still didn't get a reply. Fang Yuqing bit her lip and irritation began to rise in her heart. What the hell is wrong with this damned Zhang Yi lately? I'm taking the initiative to contact him, and he actually dares not reply to my messages. Beside her, her roommate Lin Caning heard Fang Yuqing's complaint and walked over with a grin. That Zhang Yi really has been a little weird lately. Who knows why he bought so much food and drink, and even ordered so many banquet meals from the hotel. He's making it look like supplies are about to run short or something. Hearing this, Fang Yuqing frowned slightly. She said to Lin Caning, "Ningning, do you think that after a while, something might really happen? Did Zhang Yi get some news and start stockpiling because of that?" Lin Caning was stunned for a moment when she heard this, then burst out laughing and held her stomach. "Yuqing, are you stupid or what? If something were really going to happen, the authorities would definitely send out a notice. We just need to stay calm and carry on. If we really stockpiled supplies, people would laugh at us for being idiots." After hearing that, Fang Yuqing smiled self-mockingly as well. That's true. Zhang Yi stayed in a suite at the five-star hotel for several days. He didn't go anywhere. During those days, on the one hand, he was buying up banquet meals from major hotels on a large scale. On the other hand, he stayed in the room and began practicing how to use a compound bow and crossbow bolts. Fortunately, Zhang Yi had liked hunting in the past and had a solid foundation. At a range of 15 meters, his accuracy was especially high whenever he made a shot. Especially with a professional-grade compound bow in hand, this kind of modern equipment could allow an ordinary person to shoot an arrow comparable to that of an ancient master archer. Not to mention dealing with humans. Even if he encountered wild boars, jackals, or large dogs, he could still cause considerable damage. 3 days later, with Wu Huairan acting as the middleman, Zhang Yi successfully got 2 guns and 100 rounds of ammunition. Although the price was a bit steep, Zhang Yi did not mind at all. With these heavy things in his hands, he felt a bit more confident about his own safety in the apocalypse. As for the medicines needed for the apocalypse, he had also completed the deal with Zhou Hairan and directly obtained 5 boxes of imported high-end medicine. Another week passed. Wu Huairan called Zhang Yi and told him that the safe house had already been completed according to his requirements. He asked him to come back for the inspection. Only then did Zhang Yi leave the hotel he had been staying in for quite a while, then drove back to Yuelu community. Wu Huairan personally accompanied Zhang Yi to inspect the house. When he returned home and took a look, even Zhang Yi could not help but have his eyes light up. Battle Dragon Company truly deserved its reputation as a top-tier domestic security company. Their speed and quality in building the safe house were beyond reproach. The entire home had already been fitted, according to Zhang Yi's requirements, with 200 mm thick alloy plates. Moreover, from the outside, it looked no different from before. Wu Huairan patiently explained everything to Zhang Yi one by one. The ventilation system is military-grade and can filter any harmful gases, preventing anyone from launching a poison gas attack from outside. In addition, the entire home's insulation system was completely redone, using professional-grade materials from an Arctic Scientific Research Institute. Besides building a fireplace according to your requirements, it can also prevent 99.5% of heat loss. At this point, Wu Huairan gave Zhang Yi a mysterious smile. In addition, to ensure your safety, we installed a monitoring system throughout the entire building. A total of 300 cameras will allow you to monitor every floor of the entire building. After hearing all this, Zhang Yi was so astonished that he did not know what to say. He could only sigh that being rich really was great. You could buy services beyond the imagination of ordinary people. He came to the balcony and found that it had been transformed into a huge floor-to-ceiling window. Wu Huairan explained, "The window materials are all bulletproof and explosion-proof, even sturdier than the 200 mm alloy plates. Moreover, it is convenient for your lighting and for necessary observation of the outside." Zhang Yi was extremely satisfied with this safe house, unless it was a military force carrying heavy weapons. Otherwise, no one could forcibly break into his home. Even if the entire building collapsed, his room probably still would not have any problems. "I am very satisfied with the safe house your company built," Zhang Yi said to Wu Huairan with a smile. Wu Huairan was also all smiles. He took out the documents and asked Zhang Yi to sign them, then said, "If there are no problems, please pay the remaining balance within 3 months." Zhang Yi nodded with a smile. "Certainly, certainly." But as for this final payment, there was no way he was ever going to pay it. When he thought about how he had spent only a 1 million deposit to freeload a safe house worth nearly 10 million, it felt absolutely fantastic. Zhang Yi lay on the sofa, looking over his nearly perfect safe house. But after thinking it over for a while, he realized that he had overlooked something extremely important. That was the source of life. Zhang Yi slapped his forehead. "Damn, how could I forget something as important as water?" After the frozen apocalypse arrives, although the world outside will be icy and one could obtain water by cutting through ice, by then the temperature outside would generally be minus 60 or 70 degrees, and going out would mean possible danger. Zhang Yi absolutely could not tolerate such a huge flaw in his safe house. After thinking it over, he directly placed an order through a food delivery platform and bought 100 huge water storage barrels. They could store 500 cubic meters of water at once, enough for him to use for several years. On top of that, he could later take bottled mineral water from the warehouse, so the issue of water resources was perfectly solved. The delivery guy's speed was indeed impressive. A few hours later, they were delivered right to Zhang Yi's door. Zhang Yi went to the entrance of the residential compound and asked Uncle Yu, the security guard, to let the delivery guy through. Seeing that Zhang Yi had once again bought so many strange things, all the neighbors around started gossiping. Is there something wrong with this Zhang Yi? Exactly, he's buying all kinds of weird stuff every day. A few days ago, when his place was being renovated, I saw quite a few people carrying steel plates at least more than 10 centimeters thick. Maybe his brain is broken and he's copying those movies by making some kind of safe house. I've also seen in foreign videos that some rich people with nothing better to do make that kind of thing. Isn't that just being overly paranoid? And now he's bought so many water barrels. He doesn't actually think Tianhai City will run short of water in the future, does he? Huh. But Tianhai City is by the sea. Faced with the neighbors mocking, as if they were enjoying a show, Zhang Yi couldn't be bothered to argue with them. He merely sneered inwardly. When the day the frozen apocalypse arrives, you'll understand just how foolish you are now. Zhang Yi had no interest in explaining it to them, because these people would only treat Zhang Yi like a fool and simply wouldn't listen to his well-meaning advice. They might even turn the tables on him and say Zhang Yi was spreading rumors and disturbing public order. Then he might get arrested. At that moment, Uncle Yu, the gatekeeper, was chatting with Old Man Tang, a neighbor. Uncle Yu warmly walked over and asked, "Little Zhang, what exactly are you buying so many water barrels for? If you need any help, just tell me, and I'll lend a hand." Looking at the warm-hearted Uncle Yu, Zhang Yi couldn't help feeling a bit emotional. Uncle Yu was a veteran, with no wife or children. He had worked as a security guard in the residential compound for more than 10 years and had always been conscientious and responsible. In his previous life, in order to help a mother and daughter who were about to starve to death, he donated his last bit of food and ended up starving to death himself. He was one of the few examples of the light of human nature that Zhang Yi saw in the apocalypse. So Zhang Yi said to Uncle Yu, "Uncle Yu, the temperatures this year are a bit abnormal. I have inside information. This winter is going to be very hard. Just in case, you'd better stock up on more food and drinks too. That way, you won't have to worry if prices rise later." Uncle Yu and Zhang Yi were usually on good terms. He knew Zhang Yi was a warm-hearted and kind young man. In addition, older people always tend to have a stronger sense of caution, so when he heard Zhang Yi say this, he immediately frowned. "Little Zhang, is it true? Is the information reliable?" Zhang Yi nodded. "Look, I've already prepared so many supplies. You can stock up on instant noodles and bottled mineral water. There's no harm in buying more of those things." Uncle Yu immediately nodded. He lived alone, and he already liked to keep some instant noodles and ham sausages at home, since they were convenient for cooking. Since Zhang Yi had already warned him, he would find time to buy some more. He could treat it as buying peace of mind. Anyway, those things keep well, so there was no need to worry about buying too much. But Old Man Tang beside them, upon hearing this, walked over and said to Zhang Yi, "Little Zhang, you absolutely mustn't go around saying things like that. Society is stable and peaceful now, so how could there possibly be a shortage of supplies? Be careful. Saying things like that could get you reported for spreading rumors. Then you might be taken in for questioning." Zhang Yi rolled his eyes and didn't pay him much attention. He had already said everything he could to warn them. Whether they believed it or not was up to them.